Good evening, YouTube. It's Darth Cobain 17 back, and I'm in a bit of a wacky mood tonight, and I don't know why. But I am back with more stuff. Last time I was on, I talked about a couple of Halloween-y movies that I had watched because it was the Halloween time, and a couple of them were from Dollarama, cheap indie kind of movies. And the third one here, that is the first one in this review, is another one of those, also from Dollarama. It's called Alien Outpost. Um, yeah, when I saw it, when I read about it on the back and looked at the pictures and stuff, it was like, yeah, it was a low budget kind of sci-fi film, it looked like. But I was actually very impressed with it. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The story is that in the year 2021, this alien race invades Earth and takes humanity to task. And the world is unprepared for this attack. But over the next 2 years, they launch a response. The United Nations is disbanded, and this USDF, the United States Defense Force, is founded, and they research the aliens and especially the big ones called heavies, which do the most damage, and find more efficient ways to kill them. And they also set up all these outposts across the world where the fighting is the worst. And in this movie is about Outpost 37, which is located kind of on the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan, where the fighting is still the fiercest. And this Outpost 37 is pretty renowned for being pretty crazy. And the story is of these two journalists, along with this small team of soldiers that go to Outpost 37 to see what the war is actually like there. So they show up, and when they get there, they're greeted not so welcomely. But it ends up it's just these guys clowning around, and as the journalists and the new soldiers get accustomed, they get hazed, they get initiated, all that sort of stuff. But everybody is buddies because they are fighting this common enemy, and as the days go by and they get used to the fighting, weird things start to happen, like slaughtered animals show up in the fields, which anger the locals, who take it out on the base. The locals start attacking, and some of the locals almost seem like they're brainwashed and stuff. So eventually one of their own soldiers, a couple guys get killed, one of them gets taken captive, and they go and get him back. And when he gets back, they find he's brainwashed, and but he, through code, gives them these coordinates of something. And so, defying orders, they go to find out what is at these coordinates. And it ends up, it's this big alien structure, which is the source of where the brainwashing is coming from. But more importantly, it's a weapon designed to take out the USDF's satellites in the sky, which have, since the original invasion the aliens made, has prevented any further ones from taking place because they're defense satellites. So the structure is aimed at destroying those satellites and allowing future invasions to happen. So it's kind of this last stand against this alien structure and the aliens within it. These guys want to destroy it and save not only the villagers in their region, but also the rest of the world by preventing any more invasions from happening. So yeah, it was pretty gritty, and it had a documentary feel because it was kind of filmed from the point of view of these journalists, and they did interviews and stuff with the soldiers and stuff. So it was a really kind of real feeling, and heavy and gritty, lots of blood and limbs coming off and stuff like that. And the alien effects weren't too bad. They were okay. And yeah, overall it was just a neat movie that was a lot more well done than I thought it would be. So oh yeah, the other thing I don't have, but the next thing we did was we went to see one of my son's in Original Kids here in London, which is a kids theater group, and we went to see one of the shows a couple weeks ago, which was called Witches, which is based on a Roald Dahl book that I had actually never read, and I read a lot of them as a kid. And we also heard from somebody there that it was actually a movie that was made. So I rented, I got a free pin code from Cineplex when we went to the movies one day. So I went on there and saw if The Witches was on there, and it was. So we watched that not so long ago. And the story of it is that there's this young kid named Luke who is on vacation with his parents in a small town in Norway where his grandma lives, named Helga, and his parents are going out for the night, and so Helga's looking after him, and she's telling him all these she's telling him all these wild stories about witches and what they're really like and how to identify them and the fact that they hate children and they love to destroy children, and so then he loves hearing these stories, and so that's kind of how it starts. But soon enough, his parents that night while they're out perish in a car crash. So Helga is left as Luke's only living relative. So they end up moving back to England, where soon afterwards Helga is diagnosed with diabetes. But while that's all happening, Luke is building a treehouse and is approached by this woman who seems kind of evil, and he believes she's a witch. And he tells Helga that, and so they're both kind of freaked out. But the doctor recommends to Helga that they go spend the summer by the beach, just for her to relax and get used to being a diabetic and all that stuff. So they go to this big grand resort, and Luke loves it. It's a big place he can explore, and he brings his two new mice with him, Edward and Mary, I think their names were, and so he's loving it. And he even meets another young boy around his age named Bruno, and but one day he is in the ballroom, which is empty, playing with his mice, when a gaggle of women, I guess, enter, and they're there for a conference about this, under the guise of being a prevention of cruelty to children. That's their group or whatever. But actually, they are all witches, and this is their annual meeting, led by the Grand High Witch of the world, Eva Ernst, I think her name was, or something like that, and who's played by Angelica Houston, who was Morticia Addams in the Addams Family movies and stuff. So she's like perfect for the witch role. But then he kind of hides while they're having their meeting, and he's watching what's going on, and he's horrified when they all remove their wigs and their gloves and their socks or their shoes, and he sees they're these hideous women, and none more so than the Grand High Witch, and it's all Jim Henson stuff. So like the puppets in it are just like, especially the Grand High Witch, it's like freaky looking. It's like Dark Crystal kind of stuff. But anyway, so he's watching this happen, and soon enough, Bruno, they capture Bruno, turn him into a mouse, and then when Luke tries to escape to go tell his grandma about what's happening, they eventually catch him, and they also turn him into a mouse. So, and while this was all going on, Luke learned that was their intention. They were all going to open up these candy shops, and they were going to sell their wares with this special potion in it, that was going to turn all the children in all the world into mice, and then they'd be rid of all the children. So then, in their new diminutive forms, Luke and Bruno go to find his grandma and tell her what happened, and then they have to come up with a way of defeating the witches at their own game. Well, two of them are mice, and one of them is an old woman. So it's a pretty funny. It looks like a Tim Burton kind of movie, but it wasn't directed by Tim Burton. Like, it has that vibe, and then when you combine it with all the freakish puppet costumes, like it's a really neat movie. And like I said, Angelica Houston is in it, which she makes a perfect Grand Witch, and it's just a really cool movie, and I'm sure a cool book. So I actually might see if James and I can pick that up and read it. So that was that, and then the last thing is a while back I got. I always check out the bargain bin or bargain table books at Indigo whenever I go there. And a while back, I was super thrilled to find this. Nirvana, The Teen Spirit of Rock, which is an unauthorized kind of, not biography, I guess, but it doesn't really go into much about, it's not about Kurt, it's not about any other guys. It glosses a bit on where they were born, how they came to be who they were. It's more about when they met and became Nirvana and what happened after that, the music, the tours, the experiences, and how it all affected the world, and then of course the aftermath of Kurt's death. And along the way, it breaks down every album they made and goes through every song, and it briefly explains how the song came about, the inspiration behind the lyrics, what some of them mean. which I thought was really cool because Nirvana's my favorite band, and they burst onto the scene when I was about in grade 10, I guess. And as soon as I heard the opening of Nevermind, I was all other bands for the time being ceased to exist, and that was it for me. And then when Kurt died in 1994, that was probably one of the worst days of my life. And I don't think a day has gone by since then that I haven't thought of him in the band and in the music, and how much I miss him, and what it would be like if he hadn't died, and if Nirvana had kept on going on, whether they would have split up, whether they would have gone on, whether the music would have changed that much. It's so sad and so disappointing. But we're left with the library, not that large a library, but what is there is pretty powerful shit, and easily my favorite band and favorite music in the entire world. But yeah, this book, I've read a million Nirvana books. I was cutting newspaper clippings. Like, I've got so much stuff on this band, and not only their music, but a bunch of other stuff too. And it's I find every book, even though I've read so much about them, every book has a few tidbits I hadn't heard before. It has a few photos that I haven't seen before. So I really do like to soak up as much of it as I can, and discover every little nook and cranny of Nirvana's existence as I can. But yeah, so that I just finished that the other day, and it was a lot of fun reading that, and I've got so many books that I'm not sure if there's going to be that many more released on them, but if I do find any more, I'm going to gobble them up as well, and you will see them here too. Yeah, so that's it for now, but I'll be back probably Wednesday morning after a Leafs game, and until then, sayonara.